and grace. These are the twin qualities of the new Consul Capri Gran Turismo model from Ford of Britain. Already renowned as a stylish personal car, the Consul Capri is now available in GT form with sports car performance. A car to excite the imagination of the real enthusiast, the man with a discerning eye for beauty and a mature zest for powerful performance. Behind the Capri GT is a story of logical development, punctuated by successes in races and rallies throughout the world. Developed from the Anglia, winner of the Ladies' Cup Monte Carlo Rally 1961, first, second and third in its class, Canadian Rally 1961 and 1962, first, second and third in its class, East African Rally 1961, first in its class, Acropolis Rally 1961 and 1962. A highly tuned and modified Anglia engine is the power unit for many Formula Junior cars, including the successful Lotus, which has probably won more races in a shorter space of time than any other racing car. The Anglia engine was then increased in capacity to 1340 cc to power the Consul Classic 315. A further increase of the engine stroke gave a capacity of 1500 cc, and at the same time, a 5-bearing crankshaft was incorporated in the design to produce an engine of unmatched sturdiness. This same cylinder block is used as a basis for the power unit of the 100 bhp Lotus Elan. The Elan also has the same gearbox and differential unit as the Capri GT. That, gentlemen, is the background to the Capri GT. Now, let us take a look at the features of this vehicle. First, the engine, which develops 83.5 bhp at 5,200 rpm. The 5 main bearing crankshaft runs in copper lead or lead bronze liners, 1. Counterweights, 2, reduce bearing loads, and static balance is maintained by the webs, 3. A redesigned camshaft gives higher valve lift and greater overlap between the exhaust and inlet valve sequence. A modified combustion chamber provides improved gas flow conditions. Concave-headed valves reduce the reciprocating weight and improve heat dissipation. The inlet manifold is aluminium and has separate passages to each cylinder inlet port. A water-heated hotspot is incorporated. There is a multi-branch free-flow exhaust manifold leading into an expansion box and silencer system. A particularly notable feature is the Weber twin-barrel carburetor, which is completely new to the Ford range of vehicles. We will examine this carburetor in detail later in the film. A floor-mounted remote control gear shift is fitted to the 4-speed fully synchromesh gearbox. Because of the high-speed potential of the Capri GT, a vacuum servo unit is incorporated in the braking system. Disc brakes are fitted to the front wheels and drum brakes to the rear. The steering linkage requires no lubrication as part of routine maintenance, as it incorporates nylon ball joints. The universal joints in the drive shaft are sealed and also require no service lubrication. Routine maintenance of the Capri GT should be carried out at 5,000-mile intervals after the first service at 500 miles. The Capri GT has an additional instrument panel with a tachometer, oil pressure gauge, and ammeter. New interior trim includes map pockets and extra padding on the fascia, which is elegantly finished in rosewood. That, gentlemen, is a resume of the features of the Capri GT, a car that is intended strictly for the discerning and enthusiastic motorist. Like any high-performance car, the GT is carefully engineered to particularly close limits, and there is no room for guesswork in tuning it for maximum performance. The true potential will be achieved only through the knowledge and craftsmanship of an expert mechanic. The relationship between the GT mechanic and driver needs to be in the same class as that experienced by rally and racing drivers with their expert mechanics. Our purpose, therefore, is to assist you in fulfilling this role. So now let us deal with actual servicing. First, we'll examine the Weber carburetor. It has two barrels. The primary barrel, 1, is of smaller diameter than the secondary barrel, 2, at the throttle plates. Each barrel contains a main venturi, 3, and an auxiliary venturi, 4. The main venturis have different sized internal bores and should not be interchanged. The auxiliary venturis, however, are interchangeable. In effect, except under cold start and acceleration conditions, the barrels are two separate carburetors. Each barrel has its own emulsion tube, 1, main jet, 2, idling jet, 3, and air corrector jet, 4. An accelerator pump, 1, and cold starting device, 2, are incorporated in the carburetor design. The throttle butterflies have an interconnecting linkage, the main components of which are a spring-loaded lever fixed to the primary throttle shaft with a small offset arm, 1, which fits in a slot, 2. There is a roller dowel, 3, which engages the lever, 4, fixed to the secondary throttle shaft. When the accelerator pedal is pressed, the movement is transmitted by the throttle linkage so that the primary shaft rotates, opening the primary throttle butterfly. The offset arm, 1, also turns inside the slot, 2, until it contacts the end face and causes the arm, 3, to rotate, which in turn moves the secondary shaft via the lever and roller dowel, 4. Now let us look at the fuel flow at various stages of throttle opening. At idling speed, the fuel enters the wells, 1, from the float chamber. From there, it passes to the idling jet, 2, where it mixes with air from the calibrated bush, 3. It then travels along the duct, 4, and into the inlet manifold, past the volume control screw, 5, which is situated below the primary throttle butterfly, 6. When the accelerator pedal is pressed, it opens the primary throttle butterfly, 1, and uncovers the primary progression hole, 2. This allows an increased quantity of fuel to flow to the inlet manifold. At this stage, the secondary throttle butterfly, 3, is still inoperative. Further movement of the accelerator pedal opens the secondary throttle butterfly, 1, and uncovers the secondary progression hole, 2. Fuel now flows into the secondary barrel. At this point, the fuel mixture has ceased to flow from the primary progression hole and volume control screw and now flows via the main jet. When the main jets are in use, the fuel flow is as follows. Fuel passes from the bowl, 1, to the main jets, 2, and into the emulsion tubes, 3, where it mixes with air coming from the air corrector jets, 4. From here, it enters the auxiliary venturi tubes from the nozzles, 5, and mixes with more air in the main venturis, 6, before flowing into the inlet manifold. For cold starting conditions, there is a device consisting of a spring-loaded piston, 1, with a slot in its body to accommodate the arm, 2, on the shaft connected to the choke cable. When the starter device is not in use, the piston, 1, seats in the carburetor body, 2. Ensure that at all times the piston chamber is completely free of fuel sediment. With full choke, the piston is lifted fully from its seating. Fuel flows from the bowl to the starter jet, 1, where a calibrated amount of air, 2, is added. This mixture passes via the duct, 3, to the starter piston chamber, 4, where more air, 5, is added. The mixture enters the primary and secondary barrels below the throttle plates from the duct 6. As soon as the engine fires, it creates a depression below the throttle butterflies. This is transmitted through the duct 1 to the air valve 2 in the carburetor top cover. This depression opens the valve and more air enters at 3, weakening the rich mixture needed for starting a cold stationary engine. There is an accelerator pump consisting of a spring-loaded piston, 1, connected to a U-shaped arm, 2, which passes through the carburetor body and contacts a lever, 3, on the secondary throttle shaft. The operating cam, 4, is securely fixed to the primary throttle shaft and contacts the lever, 3, which is free to rotate on the secondary throttle shaft. The mechanism works in the following way. As the accelerator pedal is pressed, the cam, 1, rotates with the primary throttle shaft, causing the lever, 2, to rotate downwards against the action of its return spring, 3. The piston, 4, which is joined to the U-shaped arm, is pushed down the cylinder by the spring, 5, and fuel is forced along the duct, 6, and into the primary barrel from the accelerator jet, 7. There are 2 non-return ball valves, one in the accelerator jet, preventing air entering the system, and one in the fuel bowl, keeping the correct level of fuel in the piston chamber. Removing the carburetor top cover will expose twin floats with a needle valve suspended between them. It is of vital importance that the float movement is correct. With the cover in a vertical position, the tab, 1, should lightly touch the needle valve ball. The correct distance, 2, from the floats to the cover face is 5.5 millimeters. With the floats in an extended position, this distance, 3, should be 14 millimeters. When reassembling the carburetor, check all gaskets for damage and renew them if necessary. The preliminary setting for the volume control screw is obtained by backing it off 2 turns from the locking point. The slow-running screw position is approximately half a turn from when the screw contacts the small arm. That completes our review of the operating principles of the Weber carburetor. The GT Fuel System Bulletin will give more detailed service information on this carburetor. Now let us examine other aspects of this car. The paper element air filter has 4 rubber washers, 1 between the carburetor securing studs and lock nuts. The rubber gasket, 2, between the air cleaner and carburetor should at all times be in perfect condition. As previously mentioned, the engine has a water-heated manifold hotspot. This is not designed to assist cold starting, but is to ensure full vaporization of the fuel mixture under normal operating conditions. If the manifold becomes flooded, the excess fuel escapes by the bleed hole, 1, in the base of the casting. The inlet valves have an aluminium coating on the undersides and facings. In no circumstances should the inlet valves be lapped in, as this will remove the aluminium coating. Worn valves must be renewed, and the valve seats in the cylinder head must be recut. The exhaust valves may be lapped in or the faces ground if required. Set the valve clearances with the engine at normal operating temperature. The inlet valves at 10 thou and exhausts at 18 thou. The pistons fitted in the GT engine are stronger and slightly heavier than the standard Capri pistons. On no account should standard pistons be fitted in a GT car. When replacing connecting rods or pistons, weigh the assemblies from each of the 4-cylinder bores. The weight variation between each assembly should not be more than 4 grams. Assemblies should be selected and matched to give this degree of balance. There are balance pads, 1, at each end of the connecting rods, from which excess metal may be ground only if it is not possible to obtain the correct balance from assemblies in stock. To obtain the correct tension in the timing chain tensioner, rotate the spring 2.5 turns from its free position. Renew an excessively slack timing chain, as this could affect the valve timing and consequently engine performance. The distributor fitted to the Capri GT has been designed to suit the high speeds attainable by this engine. Remember, this is a high-performance engine, and the distributor setting is of vital importance. Never use guesswork to set this mechanism. Check the contact breaker spring tension using the special tool number CP9501. 18 to 24 ounces should be required to open the points. If the spring tension is not correct, replace the contact breaker. Do not bend the spring to make it conform to the correct tension. The capacity of the condenser, 1, should be 0.18 to 0.22 microfarads. If there is any variation from this figure, the condenser should be renewed. Set the contact breaker points 2 at 14 to 16 thou. However, this is only a preliminary setting. The precise and fine adjustment of the points should be carried out by using a dwell meter. This is an instrument for measuring the angles at which the points open and close to within very fine limits. The dwell angle for this distributor is 57 degrees to 63 degrees. Check the vacuum and mechanical advanced characteristics on a diagnosis test set. It is absolutely essential to set the distributor on the engine at idling speed using a stroboscope to position the timing mark on the crankshaft pulley in line with the upper mark, 1, on the timing chain cover. This gives an initial static advance of 10 degrees BTDC. The approximate setting for the vacuum advance is on the 4th division of the scale for altitudes up to 2,000 feet. For each additional 2,000 feet above sea level, advance the ignition by 1 division of the scale. It must be emphasized that this is only the initial setting, and fine-tuning should be carried out during a road test. The regulator is the current and voltage control type. Adjustment is simplified by the use of the special tool. Adjust all 3 bobbins in sequence and in the minimum amount of time. This will prevent overheating, which could cause inaccurate results. Engine compression. This is a good guide to the general condition of the piston rings, cylinder bores, valves, and cylinder head gasket. Low compression reduces engine power, and in a high-performance engine, the output may become irregular. Tires. For normal driving, combined with occasional bursts of speed, the recommended tire pressures are 22 pounds per square inch at the front and 24 pounds per square inch at the rear. For sustained high-speed motorway driving, the pressure should be increased by 6 pounds per square inch all round. Don't forget that correct wheel balance is vital for high-speed motoring. Brakes. Even if the rear brakes are only slightly binding, they can drastically reduce the car's performance. Adjust the rear brakes and handbrake linkage with extreme care. The front brakes are self-adjusting. The final proof as to whether the GT mechanic has tuned the car to give its maximum possible performance is the road test. For this, select a suitable stretch of highway where it is permissible and safe to attain speeds of up to 80 miles an hour. Carry out the test using the tachometer, speedometer, and a stopwatch. The engine must be thoroughly warm before starting the test. To compensate for any prevalent wind conditions, repeat the test in the opposite direction and average the results. These tests must be carried out with the shortest possible lapse of time. Aim at achieving the specified acceleration figures. During the road test, the GT mechanic must use experience and judgment to finely tune the car to give maximum efficiency. That, gentlemen, completes our review of the Consul Capri Gran Turismo model. You will be given a booklet which is a permanent record of this film, and service literature is available which sets out in full the servicing procedures to be followed. In conclusion, we stress that the Capri GT is a car for the appreciative owner, a car that warrants particular service attention, a car that will express in terms of performance your knowledge, your skill, and your experience.